this thing working? How y'all doing tonight? Thank y'all. Love you too. So, I didn't always grow up in church. I mean, I went maybe once a month through my youth. I just never really, I knew of God, but I didn't know God. And I think where a lot of us have been in that situation before. And, well, I kind of went through life. I believe in God. I'll be fine. And, well, I started going to FCA, listening, but never really, tuned in. But then, I don't know, something just clicked that I need to start listening. And I did. And I got this girl. She loved Jesus, and she encouraged me to be closer to him. So I kind of took that up. I downloaded those daily Bible verse apps. It was something just, hey, it helped me get into the Word a little bit. It was my introduction. I never opened a Bible up until maybe 3 months ago. But through this girl, I was like, okay, she likes Jesus. I'm going to get in Jesus, make her like me a little bit more, Did it for the wrong reasons, but it was the right thing to do. So me and this girl was going on for a little bit. And then I started seeing the more I got into Jesus, that maybe she wasn't as close to Jesus as I thought. But, I mean, I prayed for her. I prayed for us. I got the girl. Hey, who knew? God is good. God is good. Hey. But at the same time, I was getting into drugs and starting to do those. And I started getting into a little bit harder drugs. But then the more I came to know Jesus, the less I wanted to do those drugs. And I didn't see the need for it as much anymore. I went from getting high because, hey, it's fun. All my friends are doing it. Why don't I? Why don't I give it a shot? So I kept on doing it. Did it for almost 6 months. And I was getting more and more, doing it more often and stuff. Doing more when I did it. It wasn't going the right way. And then I don't know, something clicked with God and something clicked with me that I didn't need it no more. So I stopped hanging out with a lot of those old friends who did it a lot and got away from it. And some people I know struggle with that. I was lucky. I didn't get super hooked. I did it for the fun, for the high. But I want to say, ever since I started coming to church, I've never had a better high than here when I'm at the church. And I heard about the Hallelujah High, but I never experienced it. And once I experienced it, I never want to go back. Man. And, well, so I'm still going out with this girl, and we're celebrating. And, well, she breaks my heart. But in that, I got more into my prayer life, more into God. Started really tuning in a lot more at FCA and stuff. And then this guy, Colin, he's like, hey, what you doing tonight? I was like, nothing much. He's like, come out to Generation. So I came, and I was like, this ain't too bad. Yeah, these people aren't like yelling at me or nothing. I guess this is okay. I tuned into Tyler's message that night. I loved it. I don't remember exactly what it was over. But it was just something I hadn't experienced before. And it's just something I really enjoyed. So, I've came back ever since. But through that, I got saved at Fields of Faith. And getting saved, I was told that it's not going to get easier. Well, obviously it didn't get no easier. See, I was told that it was going to get harder. I didn't know that my whole arm getting messed up was part of that contract. I guess it's worth it for eternal salvation. I wish we could have waited until the end of bowling season, you know. But we work on God's time, not ours. And I'm just glad that I'm able to work with God and through God. And I got baptized on Haunted House night. Who all was there? Yeah. Oh. I hope that one night we can have a normalized where we are standing room only like we were that night. And hope that more people get to come to know God and live through God and for God. And where was I? Haunted house party, yep. Thank you. It was at haunted house party I got saved, and I got baptized. I got saved at Fields of Faith, baptized, haunted house. And that following Friday, I did my first Bible study to really do work for God. And I've just really found that I love doing this. I love showing God through me. And I've just really enjoyed it. I push every one of y'all to find a way that y'all can live out life in Jesus and share Jesus with others. And it's one of the most fulfilling, satisfying things you can do is living for God and through God. And well, this thing happened, but I don't want to be angry at God. I want to thank God that He's letting me show people, despite injury, despite what you're going through, you can still live for God and do work for God. Use your injury, your pain, your struggle to amplify what God's doing in your life. I want to give thanks for being able to do this and share my story. I don't have like the craziest story, but I think that a lot of people can relate with what I was going through. And maybe you don't find God for the right reason, but you find God. That's what's important. And I just hope that anyone who's questioning their faith, who just showed up here, pursue God like you pursue games, like you pursue your sports, like you pursue things of this world. Pursue God like that, and miracles will happen. And so before I end, I want to leave y'all with this verse. Romans 12:21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And so I just want to pray for everybody tonight before I hop off here. All right. So if everyone bow their heads, please. God, I just want to thank you for this opportunity. Thank everyone for being here tonight. I just pray that everyone here is able to find a way to do work for you, do work with you, and just get to know you, God, and get closer with you. And just let all the good of your mercy and your forgiveness flow through them. God, I encourage you to encourage everybody to just do good for others and be there for other people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Hey, y'all give it up for Patrick real quick. Come on, man. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Man, what a story, y'all. That's so cool. Colin, what are you doing here? You ain't supposed to be here, bro. Hey, how's your dad?
He's doing better. He's in a lot of pain right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, he's doing better. They gave him some heavy pain meds before I left.
Good.
Before he wasn't like Brad, but when he got the pain meds,
He was Brad again. Well, good. I'm glad Brad's back. Let's go. Come on. Hey, as you can see, y'all get it from Miss Kimberly. She's amazing. And Mr. Terry, he's like one of my favorite guys to hang out with. Terry Payne, my guy. Love that dude. He's the original T-Pain. If y'all don't know about that, that's okay. He's the better version of T-Pain. So, but hey, this next story, guys, I want you to lean in, okay? I want you to pay attention, and I don't want you to be distracted. If you're distracted, if somebody's beside you, it's distracting you, just move. Just move right now. It's fine. We have space. We have room. It's okay. I want you to pay attention to Miss Kimberly's story. It's powerful. It's powerful. But she's going to share some things tonight, okay, that are personal, all right? So I want you guys to lean in to Miss Kimberly, and you guys give her Generation Youth welcome. Come on. God work through you, Miss Kimberly. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, youth. How are y'all doing? Wow, Patrick's story was so impressive. Like, it could have fit into my story. I wished it would have fit into my story. Unfortunately, it didn't, but I'm glad he said this at the beginning because it is exactly what I would tell y'all in the end. So, what did y'all think about bots? Amazing. It was amazing. Terry and I were rocked. I mean, my heart hurts for so many of you all and your stories. I just sat at the back table and just my head was down and tears just flowed. We didn't get to stay for the entire testimonies, but they were powerful, y'all. And I just want us to give Pastor Tyler, Lindsay, and all the volunteers a big round of applause for this impactful weekend. So, my name is Kimberly. I think the older I get, I like Kimberly. And I work, y'all see me, VIP check-in, haunted house party. I had the game with the body parts. Kids love that. And I've been married to Terry for 39 years. So yes, we are old. We did marry young, but I was 19, so y'all can do the math and get my age. He was 21, but we were very, very young. And he and I have been through some really rocky, tough times in those 39 years. Terry works parking. I'm sure y'all have seen him out there. And tell you a little bit about our family. We have 5 beautiful children. Unfortunately, we only have 2 here on earth. We were all afraid this was going to happen, but anyway. So we had premature twin girls in 1986. It was February. They were born at 26 weeks. Melanie, once outside the womb, she never took a breath. Brittany lived for 6 days until she went to her heavenly home. And Terry was given the honor of holding her when she took her last breath. And I decided to stay home with my father that night. We stayed at my parents' house that night. I couldn't understand why with my first pregnancy was I asked to give up these beautiful babies, but God has his plans and he has his reasons, and they were sick. And so if Brittany would have lived, we may not have ever had our other 3 children. We have Alicia, who comes here to Generation Church with her husband, Tori. They have blessed me with 2 beautiful grandchildren. Aiden is 14. Addie is 11. And then we have a younger daughter who was born in 1989 in March. And she has recently blessed us with a beautiful 3-year-old Josiah and a 10-month-old Hadley. And then we had our only son out of it. Took 4 girls to get that baby boy. And he joined his sisters in April 10th of 2020. And I will be reading off my notes some. I wanted to study today, but I got a very early text message this morning that my grandson was running 101 temperature. He's 3, so he came to Mimi's house today, and we played. I'll tell y'all a little bit of a story because it'll break the ice for me. But I had taken him to Dollar Tree yesterday to get some materials to finish off his snowman. He was in preschool. He was to make his turkey out of something else, a fireman, a snowman, something. And so we went to get some materials because Mom was at work. Well, he saw this reindeer nose, and it actually was a light that blinks. You turn it on, and it has a little band around. You put it on your head, and it has a place to fit it on your nose. Well, today I got to sing Rudolph as he ran around the house with his blinking nose. So I just over and over, Mimi, sing Rudolph again. So I know that song by heart. Um, so tonight I'm here to really, it is a testimony in a way. Terry and I, we really have, since we lost our son in 2020, we have really sought out the Lord. About the only thing that can get you through a trauma like we went through. This is a story to me, but it's not my story. This is my son's story. He's just not here to tell it. But I promise you, if he was here today, if he could just whisper in my ear, he would be saying, Mom, go tell. You have to tell. Parents, these children that we lose and the way we lost him, we've got to get out there and we've got to do something. Because if we don't, this has become epidemic. I went to the pediatrician with my daughter, and she told me about a young boy who was 17 or 18, I can't remember. This just a couple weeks ago. And he went to John Paul II over in Hendersonville, and he ended up overdosing on drugs because he didn't know. He didn't know what was in those drugs. So we've got to get out there and we've got to fight this epidemic, y'all, because it's epidemic. We are losing teenagers. We are losing young adults by the dozens every single day. Let's see, where am I? I'm sharing this story because I'm in hopes that none of you all will experience or your parents will not experience what Terry and I and our girls, our family have had to experience over the last 3.5 years. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory. I had to condense a lot because there was a lot. There was a whole lot. And I just couldn't get it all in. We would have been here till 11 o'clock. And I know y'all want to go to bed so you can go to school. Here's a picture. They should put a picture up of my baby boy. He was 6 months old there. Finally had that precious baby boy. Notice that smile. Brandon carried that smile wherever he went. Until life got really, really tough, he would light up the room with that smile. And I don't think there's one of you in here that if you met him, you wouldn't be like, my goodness. He hugged everybody. And he told everybody he loved them. He might have known you a day, but he loved you. And he didn't care. This photo right here, when he was 6 months old, I entered that into a baby face contest. It was at Hickory Hollow Mall. That's not even there anymore, out in Antioch. And he actually got in the top 25 of over 300 babies with this photo. And so this is one of my favorites. It sits on my dresser. It sits right in front of me, so when I wake up and sit up, I can see it. I want to share a couple more cute stories about him that are not in my notes because, like I said, I think it'll break the ice for me a little bit, and then we're going to get in the nitty-gritty because it's tough. So I guess he was 5 or 6 years old. My girls are here. I don't know where in here they are, and I don't want to know, but sometimes they were really rough on their little brother. Laura was 3 years older, and Alicia was 5 years older. And so he came to me one day. I don't even remember where we were at in the house, and he was crying, and I looked at him, and I said, son, what's wrong? And he proceeded to tell me that the girls, he always called Alicia and Laura the girls, had told him that me and Terry had found him under a rock. And he believed it. He absolutely believed. And I said, Brandon, honey, we did not find you under a rock. We went to the hospital just like we did with Alicia and Laura. I was so furious at them. Of course, they just laughed at me when I was correcting them. They were like, well, he shouldn't have taken us so seriously. Well, he's 5 or 6. So are all sisters that way? Because I don't have one. So everything was pretty kosher with Brandon up until around 2010, he loved to skateboard as a little boy and a young teenager, loved his bicycle. I cannot tell you how many times we were in the ER. We were getting a cast. We were, oh, you've got to have surgery. It was just nonstop. I was like, son, you have got to stop or we're going to put you in a bubble. So life happened for Brandon in 2010. It was March, and I'm just going to hit just the peak of this. I was standing in the kitchen. I remember this very vividly. One night he came into me and he was crying. He was 18, and he was a junior. He was behind a year, and he said, "Mom, Kelsey's been in a motorcycle wreck." Kelsey was his best friend at White House High School. Beautiful redhead, blue eyes. Brandon had the red hair, and they always had the same temperaments. They just got along so well. And I said, son, I'm sorry to hear that. And he said, they're life flighting her to Vanderbilt, and they don't think she'll make it. And I hugged him tightly, and I told him, it's all going to be okay, Brandon. She was on the back of a motorcycle. Some of you may know this story. It happened 2010 over here on College Street in Portland. And so anyway, he decided to get in his truck, decided to go out to the hospital. By the time he made it to the hospital, Kelsey was not alive. Noah, her boyfriend, was killed instantly. A car had pulled out in front of them. And so that was tough. That was tough business for Brandon, tough on his friends. To have such a loss at such a young age, I couldn't relate because all my friends, I didn't lose a friend in high school. So let's kind of fast forward to December 2011. In the month of December, he lost a mentor at the White House Fire Department. Brandon he was a volunteer firefighter, had gone to the academy with Captain Mathis. Captain Mathis, I think, was in his 50s. Brandon lost him. I don't know what he passed with, but he passed away. And then 2 weeks later, my dad, his favorite grandfather, collapsed on the floor at home and was gone. And so between 2010 and 2011, Brandon's world was rocked. And that's going to happen. I hope it never happens, but it's going to happen. Fast forward to 2012, Brandon started making really poor decisions. I remember this weekend, Miss Kara was talking about how after she lost her friend in high school, she started making those poor decisions. And Brandon, same thing, except he didn't come out of his poor decisions. February 2012, Terry got a phone call. They always called Dad. They never called Mom. And Brandon was in the Wilson County Jail. He had been charged with drinking while intoxicated and underage drinking. He was 20 years old. He had spent the night with a so-called friend that night before. They went out to Silverado's. Obviously, he got plastered. The state troopers told me, I spoke with him specifically, and he said he found Brandon in his truck at the crest of a hill, truck still in drive, foot on the brake, passed out over the wheel. So I told him, I said, you are so blessed because anything could have happened. That could have been a tragic accident. So anyway, he said that day, Terry and I getting him out of jail, he said was the hardest day of his life because I blessed him out the whole way home. I told him what could have happened, why it could have happened, and he said that was a hard day for me, Mom. And I said it needed to be. 2012, March, so a month later, Brandon started getting back into church. He was baptized, and a couple weeks later went and got his tattoo. If y'all can show those pictures. This is on my phone. I see this every day. I open my phone up. And then this is him coming out of the water, and this was his beautiful tattoo. Terry and I actually have got I've never had a tattoo in my life. Didn't think I'd ever would. but I got a small one tattooed on my back. Terry got his on the same place Brandon had his. But ours don't look near as pretty as Brandon's did. So continue to go to church. August 2016, he was 24, decided he was going to move out. He had tried college on and off, just couldn't get in the groove. He would go for a couple months, drop out, get back in, drop out, and just couldn't get in the groove, just couldn't get his head on straight. And so he came to me and said he was moving out, and I said, that's not a bad idea, son. Not a bad idea. You are 24, you have a steady girlfriend, you are working. He was working with a tree arborist, a guy who had a tree company, and he was climbing trees, which that scared us to death too. And he was taking down trees from the top to the ground. Brandon had just begged Terry and I for a motorcycle for years. And we told him, as long as you live under our roof, there will be no motorcycle. We cannot let you have something that if something happened, we would blame ourselves for the rest of our life. And so he would get mad at us. But anyway, he moved out with a friend in 2016. Early 2016, he calls me and says, Mom, I'm buying a motorcycle. And I'm like, son, you know that's not a good idea. And his friends told him, Brandon, you can't even keep your four wheels of your truck on the road, much less two wheels on a motorcycle. So fast forward a couple weeks, this mama, I worried and I worried and I worried. I get a phone call from Terry, Kim. Brandon's been in an accident. Brandon is hurt. He didn't say an accident. He said, Brandon's been hurt. He said, I'm headed to the scene now. He said, he called me, he FaceTimed me, he was laying on the ground and looking at me and saying, Dad, I need you. That's all it took. Terry dropped everything he was doing. He said, where are you, son? I'm coming. I said, do you know what happened? He said, I don't know, but I'll call you when I get there. And he said, I think maybe he fell out of a tree. And I said, no, he wrecked his bike. And so he got there, sure enough. He tried to take a curve that was a 20-mile-an-hour curve. The police said probably going 60. Gravel caught his wheels, threw the bike out from under him, threw him off the bike, and threw him into some trees. He had some severe injuries. He broke both femurs. He broke his tibia and fibula, and he almost lost his pinky. If you know anything about, if you've had anatomy, the femurs are very vascular. They're our largest bones in our bodies. And so he should have been transported life flight. He wasn't. They took him by ambulance and took him to an outlying hospital. I was not happy about that because Mom knew a little bit. I'm a nurse, and his vital signs were really off. And I kept telling the nurse, he's losing volume somewhere. And I finally got them to get him out of that hospital into Vanderbilt in the trauma unit. As soon as we got there, they were pumping blood into him. He was losing blood faster than they could get into him. He actually had on his right leg, he had a partially severed artery and a partially severed vein. And so he was losing massive amounts of blood. Took him to surgery, split his leg open to relieve the pressure, split his leg open, put rods in. He was quite the mess. So got him recovered from that. Still walked with a pretty significant limp. Never got that right leg really back to where it needed to be. But got him through, and that was enough for us. Started going back to work. So 2018, it was April 12th, and he gets a call. Him and I were together at that very moment. He got a phone call from a nurse at Vanderbilt. His girlfriend had been in a very serious accident. She was the same girlfriend he had when he had his motorcycle wreck. She owned a Jeep, and when she was going down the road, she went off, came back up, overcorrected, flipped her Jeep, seatbelt broke, ejected her. Paraplegic, if y'all know what that is, paralyzed from the high waist down. And 20 years old. Beautiful young lady. So that devastated him. Just one more gut punch for Brandon. He decided to quit his job. She decided to go to rehab in Atlanta, and he spent 3 months in Atlanta with her at rehab. He learned her care. He learned everything. She had spinal surgery. The neurosurgeon looked us in the face and said she has less than a 1% chance of walking for the rest of her life. And can you imagine at 20 years old how that feels? So got them through that. There should be a picture. There's Cheyenne, 20 years old, having to, that little white thing around her chest is what's keeping her upright because she had no control from high chest up, down. So she was there about a week in the Vanderbilt Trauma Unit and transferred her to Shepherd in Atlanta, and Brandon set up camp. He got him a cot, he got him a nice mattress, and he was there until she went home. This is a picture of him. It was the cutest thing. He would highlight, this is the Bible his sister gave him, and I wanted to bring that tonight, but I forgot to ask her for it. But he would highlight scriptures in the Bible for her, and then he would take those scriptures and write them on an index card and leave them on her bedside table for the next day just to give her some encouragement. So Brandon had the tools. He knew where to go. He knew where to go for encouragement. He knew where to go for that help. So fast forward, August of 2019, he continues his little spiral down. I wouldn't say it was little. Terry calls me and he said, I got a call from Cheyenne, which is his girlfriend. And he said, she wants to talk to me and she needs to see me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Is she pregnant? You know, what's going on? And he said, Kim, she would not tell me over the phone. So Terry said, Cheyenne, this is where I'm working today. And so she met him down there. She had some kind of a package. Terry can't remember if it was a bottle, if it was a sack, but it had drugs in it. And it was a white powder. And she said, I found this in Brandon's car. And Terry said, okay. So Terry met him at work that afternoon before he got in the parking lot, waiting for him to get off. And Terry had some deep conversations with him. Of course, those were not his drugs. Those were friends that he was transporting. They were not. February 2020, I think Brandon had had enough of Cheyenne. Cheyenne had had enough of Brandon. They had not dealt with their individual traumas, and they ended up breaking up. That was probably mid-February. So on April 10th of 2020, 2 months later, we lost our precious son to a drug overdose. I'm going to give you a little bit of a story about it. I was working from home. We had just started COVID, and I was working from home as a triage nurse at Vanderbilt. And that day, I got up, I got ready, got my computer open, and I just had a really odd piece to myself that day. I had a mother call in. I did pediatrics, and I had a mother call in, and she had a really sick child, and I was really worried about that. And we were working on that really hard. And by 10 or 11 o'clock, if I had not heard from Brandon, I was panicking. Where's Brandon? And so didn't hear from Brandon at 10 or 11 o'clock, but I had this sense of peace. I was like, I'm not going to call him. Everything's okay. Everything was okay. Went about my typical work day, and around 5:40 that afternoon, I was getting ready to shut my computer down. I had talked to my last parent, and Terry comes in the door crying. And he starts apologizing for a little spat we had over bacon that morning. And I'm like thinking that wasn't a big deal. And he continued to cry. And he said, I'm so sorry about arguing with you. And as he got closer to me, he got in front of me and he knelt down. And he said, honey, Brandon's in heaven. Very confused, I looked at him, blank stare, and I said, no. No, you cannot say those words to me. I fell to my knees and just started crying hysterically. Once I could kind of catch my breath, I started asking questions. Where is he? What happened? How did this happen? Over and over. And at first I thought maybe suicide. Life had been so tough on him. And I asked Terry, I said, did he use a gun? And Terry said, no, his body is fully intact. So a little bit of a story. Terry said around 4 o'clock that day, he started worrying. And Terry's not my worrier. And he started worrying about Brandon. So we called him several times. Brandon wasn't answering. So he decided he was going to leave the job site and he was going to go over to the job site Brandon was supposed to be at. So he went over to the job site. Brandon wasn't there. He said, Kim, I got even worse of a feeling after that. So we decided to go to his apartment. He said, I'm going to go. He said, I thought I'd go over there. I would see if his truck was in the driveway in hopes his truck would not be there, obviously. His truck was there. Terry got a key to his apartment, said he walked up to the door and started banging, yelling his name. No response. Not even the dogs barking. He had 2 big dogs and they weren't even barking. Got into the apartment, went up to the bedroom door, couldn't get in. It was locked. So he got the key to his door. He said as soon as he cracked the door open, Brandon was face down on his bed. Both dogs sitting by his side. Terry said as he got closer to him, he said, I touched his back. He said, Kim, I knew immediately he was gone. So he said he sat there. He said he rubbed his back and he talked to him. And, of course, this was after he called the authorities. And I told him, I said, Terry, I've got to go. I've got to go see my son. And so he put me in the truck, and we went over to his apartment. And when I got there, EMS and Robertson County Sheriff's Office wouldn't let me in. And I cried, and I said, I want to go in and see my son. And they said, no, you cannot. So the detective was really late getting to the investigation. I guess it was 2 hours later. He finally arrived and did his investigation, and he came out and he said, I found a bowl beside your son's bed. There were remnants of heroin in there. Obviously inhaled it. He said, I found no needles or anything like that. But he said, that's what happened to your son. We got his toxicology report back several weeks later, and the heroin that he inhaled had 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl and 2.5 times the lethal dose of methamphetamine. And I am telling y'all, y'all don't know what you're getting when you buy this stuff. You do not know what you are getting a hold of. Brandon would not have done this on purpose. Medical examiner said Brandon never knew what hit him. To say the least, our family, we had to call people. Our family was devastated. But after the investigation and after he came out and talked to Terry and I, they brought my baby out. They brought him out on a stretcher in a black body bag. And I had to, my oldest daughter, Alicia, and I sat there. And we leaned over him and we hugged him. And we told him how much we loved him and how sorry we were that we weren't able to be there for him. And just poured it all out to him at that moment. Well, it was time for Brandon to go. They had to take him downtown to the medical examiner's office. I cannot begin to tell y'all the gut punch that I had and the thousands of pieces that my heart was shattered in. I think Terry would tell you, and I think our girls would tell you, that Brandon and I were tight. He was a mama's boy through and through, and he protected his mama. I mean, his mama and his sisters. Nobody messed with his mama. Nobody messed with his sisters. Finally, we went home that night. I couldn't sleep for crying. trying to process everything. So I got up and went to sit on the sofa, and Terry came in behind me. He sat down, he was crying, and I looked at him and I said, we have to make that phone call. And Terry knew exactly what I was talking about. We had to call the funeral home to make arrangements for our son. We, next day, or that later on that day, Terry and I and our oldest daughter, Alicia, went to the funeral home. We had to pick out a casket. We had to pick out flowers. We had to pick out clothes. We had to pick out dates. We had to pick out times. Everything no parent ever wants to have to do, we had to do. And y'all don't want that for your family. You don't want that for your mom and dad. It's the toughest thing I have ever had to do. So on April 15th, 2020, Pastor Brandon joined us and conducted Brandon's services. Didn't even know my son. We had started to come to church December of 2019 here. And, asked him to do the eulogy of a young man he didn't even know. But we were laying our baby boy to his eternal rest. This is a picture. It's hard for me to look at. And then we've got a picture. There's another picture of his headstone. And I go and I keep that cleaned. And I sit up there and I talk. That's a lot of times where I go and meditate, talk to Jesus. Sometimes talk to him. And there's been times I've sat there and blessed him out. So I want each and every one of you to realize that this is tough stuff with a capital T. If you would have ever told me 40 years ago I would lose a child at 27, I would look at you and go, there's no way. That wouldn't happen to me. It can happen to any one of us. And John 16:33 says, in this world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world. And in this verse, Jesus is acknowledging that a Christian life will not be easy. He also promised that we have greater hope in the world to come. I'm telling y'all, my son is in heaven. He knew the Lord. I have gotten my clarification more than once for the Lord that my son is in heaven. I've asked for clarification, and I have received it. Terry and I had the chance to go to Hawaii last February, and we went, and Hawaii is paradise. And I was laying in bed one night, and I just prayed to the Lord, can you please give me another sign? He had already given me signs. Can you please give me another sign that you are holding my son tight? I said, give me a rainbow. Give me a special bird, whatever. Just give me that sign. That was early into our trip. We went to Maui like for the last 6 days. And we had about 2 or 3 days left. It was a beautiful day. All of a sudden it started raining. Out of nowhere, pouring down. Terry's driving. I'm sitting on the passenger side. And all of a sudden I scream, there's a rainbow. And he's like, she's never been excited about rainbows. But you know what? God gave me my clarification. He gave me what I needed to hear at that moment. So after we laid our baby boy to rest, we had to learn to navigate life without him. And we are 3 years and 7 months in, and we're still learning to navigate life without this beautiful boy. We have good days. We have bad days. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes Terry comes in crying. Sometimes our girls cry. It just depends how it hits us that day. But I want you all to know how this has affected me and my family. Not only does that decision to take that hit, to drink that drink, to take that risk, it not only affects you, it affects mom, dad, brother, sister, nephew, niece, friends. It affects everybody. If y'all know Aiden, he's 14, goes to church here. Him and Brandon were best friends. And he's not here tonight because he has a very big project he's working on that has to be turned in tomorrow. But he's still up until this day, has had counseling because it has hit him hard. I have had counseling and did grief group here. So the grief group here was amazing with Miss Timberly, Carla Bird, that's not here anymore. It really was an amazing way to try to heal somewhat. Terry and I will never heal. Our girls will never heal totally. But you know what? God is getting us through one day at a time. Um, we all have choices. And Brandon could have chosen. Instead of taking that hit of heroin, he could have chosen to reach out to somebody or just get on his knees and pray. Terry swears by the fact that when he got there, that Brandon was in the praying position. Medical examiner says no way because he didn't know what hit him. But Terry says, I am going with the fact that my son knew something wasn't right and he was praying. So unfortunately, in that one little moment of desperation, that one little crack, Satan got in. And it can happen, y'all. He is a tricky old guy. And he can get in that one little crack. And you could be gone. Your parents could be walking through the same thing that we walk through. Don't do it. I beg y'all. I know what it feels like. We live this every day. Don't do it to the people you loved. You love, I should say. We have options. We have choices to let Jesus take the lead. And I've told y'all, these, our choices affect everybody around us. And I've heard Pastor Brandon preach that sermon more than once. It's a trickle effect. Some people have come up to me in these 3 years and said, you know what, Brandon's not missing a thing. Yes, he is. Yes, he has all the glory right now, but he's missing family. He is missing out. He has missed a new nephew and a new niece, my 3-year-old grandson and my 10-month-old granddaughter. Never got to meet them. He has missed out on Aiden and Addie's accomplishments within these last 3.5 years. And he has missed out on building that business with his father that they were getting started. I wish that night he would have just handed it all over and called someone to talk, just whatever it took. There are people that can help. Now all we have left of our son are memories. I have pictures everywhere. Every room has a picture of our son, except I think our dining room and our kitchen. Every other room has a picture of him. I know when I was grieving so heavily, my oldest daughter was like, I think maybe we need to take the pictures down. I said, if you take those pictures down, you are in big trouble. That is my son. That is your brother. He was part of our family, and he won't be taken down, and he will not be forgotten. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a little statement that Terry always says. Terry says, you know what? On that Friday, April 10th, it was Good Friday. He said, Satan may have gotten his way, but God won his soul. Satan didn't get it. I also want y'all to know that I'm a living testimony that you can go on after something as tragic as the loss of a child. It's supposed to be one of the greatest losses there are. And only Jesus has carried me. Only Jesus. I have given him all the credit from day one. Do I still struggle? Yes, every day. Every day. This will never be an easy road for any of us, for any of our family, for any of his friends. Not until I take my last breath and I join him in God's kingdom will this not be an easy road. I want to just talk to y'all a little bit. I know y'all hear these talks all the time, but I've lived this one out. I want to talk to you about peer pressure. We know for a fact that Brandon had that friend, never was a friend, Never would have let Brandon go as far as he went if he was a friend. Cheyenne said when they would go over to this young man's house, he would nag Brandon, take another hit, take another drink. You're not leaving yet. You need to take another hit. And Cheyenne said she would be trying to get him out the door, and this young man would still be pressuring him. And Brandon didn't do well. He was easy to crash under peer pressure for whatever reason, especially with this young gentleman. We had told him on several occasions, cut ties. You need to cut ties with this young man. And he never could understand why. Be careful. A true friend will respect your decisions. They will not push you, nor will they lead you down that wrong path. You have a mind of your own, and if you say no, then stick to that. No means no. There is not one friendship out there that is worth you going against what you believe or something that can hurt you. I don't care if I have another friend in the world. I have a friend, and it's Jesus. Sometimes we have to reevaluate who we hang around. If you hang around others that encourage you, support you, speak up for you, and truly care about you, those are your true friends. But if you hang around someone that drags you down to their level, encourages you to do things that you don't want to do, and you know those things are wrong, they're not a true friend, and you do need to reevaluate. I want to give y'all a couple of Brandon's favorite scriptures. He, in life, had used these scriptures, but I found these on his Facebook page, and it just kind of reminded me. Philippians 4:6-7 says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God your needs, and don't forget to thank him for his answers. If you do this, you will experience God's peace, which is far more wonderful than the human mind can understand. His peace will keep your thoughts and your hearts quiet and at rest, and as you trust in Jesus Christ. And that is so true. In that one little desperation moment, I wished he would have reached out to the scripture. The other scripture is Joshua 1:9, which is be strong and courageous. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord will be with you wherever you go. So in the end, a small price, I don't know what a hit of heroin is, 15, 20 bucks. I don't know, but it took one of the most precious 5 gifts that God gave to me and Terry. You don't know where it's coming from. Do not trust it. We're still looking. We're still actively looking. We're still actively trying to get into his phone. We know there's answers, but they're just not, they just haven't come about yet. Something else Terry told him. Terry always thinks of the greatest things to say. He said he told Brandon one day, he said, if you can go up to the counter and you can purchase it, you're good. He said, but if you have to sneak around to buy it, it's not good. It is not good. It's not okay. It's not worth your life. And it's not worth the pain that you could put your family and friends through. In the end, I want to give you an example of 2 traumas and the outcomes of each. Brandon's trauma ultimately took his life. He got addicted to opioids, and I'm sure it was because after 8 surgeries on his right leg, the nerve pain was just too much. And then he had all the emotional pain on top of that physical pain. Cheyenne, she can't walk. She is almost 6 years in. She still has not got out of that wheelchair. But you know what? I got a picture of her. This is her a couple months ago. She goes on big hunts with the disabled Americans. And this is one of the turkeys that they caught. She shot. She's really active into it. And then there it is, a closer picture. But there she is in her wheelchair. You know what? She took those lemons and she made lemonade. She said, I'm not letting my trauma bring me down. If you could go to the next picture, please. Not too long ago, she got a bull elk out in Utah. Went to Utah with the disabled Americans, got a bull elk. How hard hard would that be, even to use that gun with very low upper body strength? But she does it. She gets out and do it. She's lived by herself ever since we lost Brandon. She moved into her own apartment, and she does for herself. She doesn't live off the state. She takes care of Cheyenne. One more picture is she got an axis deer in Texas. And so she's been able to get all these mounted, so she gets all the meat from them. Cheyenne has moved on. We found out a couple of months ago that she's now in a relationship with a young man who is a hunting guide. He hunts large animals all over the world, even grizzly out in Alaska. And she has moved to Iowa to be with him. And even today I texted her and I said, I'm so super proud of you. And I am. I'm so super proud of her because she didn't let something that could have taken us all down and taken us exactly where Brandon is. She could have let that happen, but she didn't. So that's my story, and that's my son's story.